those two standards are met, which are the same standards as the current ordinance. They're just taken from the table and text and put in one section. Some of the language is a footnote, item B, most of it is a footnote, so they're all just grouped in one location. Moving on to section 12, maintenance agreement. This one, the existing ordinance has two long running paragraphs. This one is broken down to the items that are important based on our previous discussions on other private road agreements. And the intent is to revise the draft agreement with the similar sections and have it available for our residents and landowners if they choose to use that draft. The question for the board is, are there any other items you would want to be included in the agreement in this at minimum list? The residents can add their own restrictive standards if they wish to choose.
We're talking about section 12.
Yes.
I have a question about item E.
Okay.
Regular cutting of weeds and grass within the easement. What if what's growing in the easement is a cash crop like corn or soybeans or wheat?
They're not permitted to grow anything in the easement as far, I mean, that's the standard. Yeah. Because the easement is meant for access and utilities only. That's the reason why the area with an easement, detached accessory structures are not permitted in the easements, and you can have trees for shade.
The easement isn't just for road, it's for gas lines,
Yes.
electric lines, and crops grow very nicely over those things.
I mean, I'll have to look into that a little bit more, but I'm open for guidance.
I mean, we have farmers that farm right to the road's edge.
Yes, I think I've seen some on Webster Church.
It's very common.
Right.
I question the structure of the first part of that sentence.
And what do you mean, instead of
Shall
acknowledge?
acknowledge to maintain the following.
Correct. Instead of acknowledge, would you shall refer to maintenance of the following?
Sure.
I'll have to talk regarding crops and such with the fire department, because we do have the width of the gravel or asphalt pavement, and then we have the shoulders. So can crops come all the way to the pavement or to the edge of shoulder?
Yeah, but your driving surface is not going to be 66 feet wide.
It's not, but I think there still has to be a buffer between the edge of pavement and how far the crops can come.
There does, according to the profile, you've got ditches.
Right.
So,
There has to, so I need to run that by the fire.
pretty much the mowing you would see in the ditches all the way up to the surface.
Right. I'll also talk to the Washington County Road Commission and see how they regulate, how they address this within their public right-of-ways.
Technically, your maintenance says we only have to cut weeds and grass in the easement. It doesn't say crops,
Right.
so.
It only requires vertical clearance of 14 feet within that, so beyond that, it's a good question. I just don't want to answer based on the information I have right now. I want to talk to the right people.
There also may be trees within the easement area,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's our intention necessarily that, existing road, that there may be a request to improve or add on to, that we're going to require people to cut existing trees down.
That is a good point. We did include the vertical clearance in the table. We should make a reference to that under maintenance, to maintain the vertical clearance.
Yeah, I personally don't see us, I would oppose us trying to clear cut a 66-foot swath.
Now, I think we can have a vertical clearance of 14 feet and a horizontal clearance of 24, 26, depending on how much buffer we want to leave for ditches and, the entire cross section, and then the rest can be, doesn't need to be maintained clear. But no permanent structures or so I will revise, I will add to the maintenance section E, a reference to a vertical clearance and a horizontal clearance, the minimum height and width.
And if I can go back up to the first paragraph, the second sentence, we should add the intent of this maintenance agreement.
Oh,
Because you currently have agreement capitalized and there's no definition for agreement, so it's got to be maintenance
Maintenance
agreement or uncapped agreement. And then following agreement, add the word is.
is to provide. The intent of this agreement, maintenance agreement is to provide.
Yes.
Period, G.
And,
G.
oh, yes. Okay, are we ready for section 13?
I have a question on number H.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a road manager of a private gravel road and was told that the biggest challenge that they face in terms of road maintenance is the damage that's done whenever a new home is constructed on their road.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to address that?
That's exactly what the section is intended when it was added. If it's not clear, we can put more emphasis on it. So this one talks about mechanism to address damages caused to a private road due to extraordinary use caused by one or more property owners. And I think we can add some examples there, saying property owners for new construction or
You can just use.
more than normal usage, etc.
I think that would be a good idea.
Because that's the exact intent of that one. Section 13, expiration, extension, and deferral. The current ordinance talks about expiration. It does not provide any options for extensions and deferral. So this this section addresses an administrative extension because there might be many reasons why the 18-month period may be exhausted. And the deferral of construction is if, for example, we have a lot split that proposes 3 lot splits, but they only intend to construct the one house that's closer to the main road. So it doesn't make sense to build the entire road and maintain it for additional cost. So this addresses deferral in those situations. The deferral is only for new builds. The expiration and extension can apply for new builds or upgrades of existing.
So how do we guarantee that if we defer construction, that when that third, fourth lot gets sold, is the owner of that third lot burdened with the maintenance and upgrades of that road? Or is the first person that gets the approval responsible if they're still around?
It's a good point. As you were saying, I'm thinking one of many ways to address that is add a deferral clause to the maintenance agreement, because every landowner gets a copy of it and it's recorded. And then 2, they have to come to the township for a compliance permit if they ever decide to develop the property, and that triggers the maintenance agreement that's tied to the property.
So who's going to end up paying for that then?
That's why adding the deferral construction to the maintenance agreement, the owner,
So all the property owners get to pay for it then?
or however they decide to put it in the maintenance agreement.
It wasn't in the maintenance agreement.
It's not, I just added it when you asked that wonderful question, that terms of timeline and cost should be included in the maintenance agreement.
It almost seems to me like there should be a performance bond on each parcel.
We do have,
But these may set for 10, 20 years, and the bond won't cover it when you get done.
This is just talking about deferring building the road, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, not building it, having lots that are developed.
Right. But somebody might sit on it for years and years.
Right. There should be a maximum deferral time, period.
then it would be upon us to figure out when the deferral ends, and then a compliance permit application would trigger it automatically. If not, we have to track when the time ends and make sure they build the road.
I just don't see the time of, I don't see the point of deferring it 20 years, 10 years.
It's also will be like an attractive nuisance if you have a road that goes to nowhere. So fire also was okay with the deferral concept.
If
But that's
somebody
just
wants 4 lots, they want to do the splits, and they only want to build one house on it now, they want to continue to own it indefinitely, and then something happens, it gets sold.
Okay. Moving on to section 14. This one, it's not at all clear in the current ordinance how to address steps after a permit has been issued, and we have tried these steps for the existing road permits in the past 1 year, and we just formalize that with this amendment.
In item 2, we should, you're referring to the executed maintenance agreement?
Yes.
So we
Okay,
should
yes.
indicate that.
Can I ask a question? John,
Sure.
what time do you want to adjourn? We have a lot more items on the agenda.
So let's finish. Well, let's finish this section and then discuss that.
I'll make it easier. After 14, 15 and 16 are just existing sections carried over. 17 is a new one, and then you're done. But I don't understand it's coming back because I do need your input on section 5. So.
And straight again, back on number 2, we're calling it access easement. I think we should reference what we call it in permit application, which is the easement exhibit.
Correct. We good with 14? Okay. 15 and 16. I do want to make a correction. Section 15 is not existing. It's one, just because it's a standalone ordinance, any appeals doesn't go to, if the zoning administrator issued an administrative permit, and if the applicant doesn't agree with it, then they can appeal to the township board. If somebody doesn't like the township board's decision for private roads, then they go to the circuit board. That expectation is just laid out in the ordinance here. Sixteen is existing. Seventeen may require some additional discussion, so I'll defer it to board.
Sri, could we go back to 14C3?
Okay.
There's reference to an inspection escrow. I think we just have escrow.
Right, under A4 in the same section. So we can just have,
Oh, I see, okay.
because what Ted has realized, if it's an existing road, sometimes it needs more than one visit. And if we complete all the escrow that we received at the beginning of the application, we use this as another opportunity to make sure there are enough funds to cover Ted's, our engineer's inspections.
So are you requiring this inspection escrow right up front?
The right, at the time of application, the escrow covers one review, 2 reviews, and 3 inspections approximately. If we need any more, then we'll collect more.
Okay.
And she had one other comment related to 14B, so that relates to pre-construction meeting.
Yes.
Bring 1 week prior to start of construction, and then there are just 3 items there. So, do those items need to be addressed prior to the
Yes.
town meeting?
Mhm.
Although the third one is something that would occur
At the
during that.
meeting, but they should provide that information.
I think we need to clarify that.
Oh yeah, the line was missing. The construction meeting shall be scheduled by the applicant at least 1 week prior to the construction, provided the following are completed, or following conditions are met. And then for item 3, I would say shall be submitted prior to the meeting or discussed and agreed upon at the meeting.
So is the plan that we finish 17 and section 5 next time, or are we gonna muscle through them?
I think section 5 and 17 definitely needs discussion, but section 1 through 7, there are just some minor updates made based on your discussion. I just wanted your sign off on it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Reed, I didn't quite understand. You're asking for 1 through 7 final sign-on?
Right. Not right now,
Okay.
but I'm just laying the expectation for the next meeting.
Sri, what are you expecting us to look at in 5?
Under C, D, and E, there were items that says none required, I highlighted. I think the discussion was kind of concluded as none being required, but I wasn't quite sure. I did check with a couple of board members. The answers kind of varied, so I just wanted some confirmation as how, a conclusive confirmation as whether you want that to be none required or were there other thoughts. The rest of the comments are pretty straightforward. I mean, the memo kind of summarizes what they are. That's the only item where I wasn't quite clear, if I captured your intent.
Okay, so we need to be prepared for that for next week or next month. Thank you. Okay. We already did the fireworks permit, appointment or reappointment of expiring terms of the planning commission, CBA.
No, you gotta go back to
Old business.
We have
9D.
Oh.
business
I'm sorry.
D.
Yep, okay.
But D is
Parking
down,
lot
parking
is-
lot punch list.
Is parking lot punch list. Okay, what I have so far is, the bird baths are still in existence. We need to examine, the sealant
contract for, cutting back any of the entryway shrubs or trees?
Just what the road commission required.
And do we need, excuse me, do we need to review the ADA parking layout?
We have complied completely with ADA.
To the minimum legal standard.
I have the documentation on my desk, I'll get it to you.
So as far as the punch list is concerned, they've done what they were supposed to do. Now, I was gonna bring it up later, but looking at, and I did talk to the engineer to kind of get an idea of what it would cost to widen at least several of those spots to make them larger, as Mr. Daly has brought up. And it's not that much of an expense, but I think at this point that they've done what they were supposed to do. I think it's gonna be extra cost for us to do it, but we should consider, and it's not part of the parking lot punch list, but we should consider looking at least taking several of those spots and making them wider so they're van accessible and they're bigger for somebody that is, you know, needs a wheelchair or has a device that they need to use. So we should consider that. And the cost wasn't too high for getting some lines and paint done. So just if we did that, we could make those accommodations on several spots.
To go back to the punch list too, I have that we are also waiting on the lighting, right? I know that's back ordered, but
The 4 poles
Yeah.
and the 2 yokes.
yeah,
You mentioned the ceiling. As far as I'm concerned, the ceiling is done.
Well,
Is there a different opinion?
we need to examine, I was unaware that there was traffic across it. We probably need to take a close look at it, where cars went through.
Yeah, so the guy that came out that did it, he was working alone, and he closed off that entrance and left this entrance open. And you can see tire tracks where people rode through the ceiling before it had a chance to dry, but it's still there.
Well, we need to walk it with Alex from T&M.
They did an okay effort at remediating the crack seal. I might wish for more, but I can live with what it is. But I mentioned to you that where the 2 signs are for parking, and if we do something different with handicap parking, it's gonna mean more signs, which is not just paint.
I don't know that it will need more signs. If you, when I'm talking about that, you can use the signs that are there and just widen them. We're just gonna lose some spots. And
Anyway,
you can put hash marks.
the 2 signs that are out here are, they drilled basically a 4-inch hole. And-
Core.
Yeah, and I feel like that hole needs to be addressed. Right now, it's still a hole. What I've seen on public roads is that they'll put a plastic cone, which is essentially screwed to the concrete. I've seen other places where they try to fill it with something, but then eventually stuff grows in whatever they fill it with.
Well, couldn't we fill it with silica sand and then cap it with sealant?
I don't know. I'm not a civil engineer. I just think it needs to be addressed. I don't know how it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed.
I think we talked about that. And they had said that leaving those open was standard now, is what they were saying. Because the thing is, if you try to get something in there, and the water can drain down through the subbase, supposedly. Whether or not it does, I don't know. but I've seen both, I've seen what you're talking about too. I mean, I've seen them fill it with asphalt, I've seen them fill it with all kinds of stuff.
Or cap them.
Or cap it, but.
I'm not here to say what the solution is, but I don't think they should be left over.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there was, John, you indicated you thought the crack caulk work is okay. I think it's, like an amateur did it bad.
No, yeah, they came out and tried to remediate it, and they patched some stuff, but a lot of it, yeah, if we want to push for some more, I think I could support that. I'll never be satisfied with it.
I'm surprised that they
Kind of
feel it's satisfactory.
furniture
I mean,
work in terms of what it looks like. I'm not sure that it's structurally that bad, but they did clean up their mess.
well, you also have, you know, big gobs of it,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
then there's a depression.
Right.
It just,
Where there's not much material and maybe not enough
right,
material.
it's just a really, really poor execution.
Okay, anything else?
Spillway, John, if they're gonna do any, they need to check that spillway where that water is coming across. Make sure that that's stabilized and that there's either riprap put there or that there's some kind of, stabilization that will withstand the water.
I thought they were gonna swell that to the ditch.
They were going to initially.
Yeah, whatever they're gonna do, they need to look at that.
Okay, anything? Okay, discussion of payment balances to T&M invoices. We have two invoices that we partially paid. The first one was for $188,212.50 after the retaining, and we paid $100,000. The actual bill was $209,125. The other one, we paid $17,520 out of $73,523. What we did not pay for were the new light fixtures, and we didn't pay for the concrete sealant, both coats, and we didn't pay for the hot rubber joint sealing. What do we wish to do with these two invoices?
I have another question. Are they or are they not supposed to do lighting under the overhang here as well as on the sign on the front?
I believe that they're supposed to do the two canopy lights there. I'll have to go back and look at the proposal. Let me put that on.
Yeah, I think there's more lighting and electrical to be done besides just light posts.
Yeah. Well, they haven't billed us for the light posts, so. What do we wish to do on the two invoices?
Well, they haven't done the fixtures yet,
They've done most of them.
have they?
Yeah, you got all new lights.
But we don't know about these.
We got 4 poles that there's no pole or fixture. there's supposed to be a couple of yokes where they're double out here. That's to give light to the asphalt parking lot and the cement parking lot. What are we going to do with the invoices?
And I guess just for clarity, the portion of the $209,000 invoices for generally the project, correct? And the second one's some of the additional add-on work, roughly.
The electrical, was like missing out of part of the contract. And the rest of it were all add-ons that we agreed to.
And with the punch list items, are those mostly related to the add-on work or on the whole
Well,
project?
The only thing that's on the spreadsheet that doesn't show that it's 0% remaining is lighting. And lighting upgrades, line 25 shows half remaining, and half is 22,500, which I don't understand how 22,500 relates to 26,300 on the bill.
Maybe it was half plus one.
Well, the total cost was 45,000, and half is 22,500.
And the light has been changed, but, we're still missing 4 poles, 4 light heads, no, actually 6 light heads and 2 yokes.
Is that more or less than half?
We didn't get individual billing.
Well, that's part of the problem. They have quantity 1.
Yeah.
Their invoicing is insufficient.
It's not solid.
I mean,
Well, would it
from
make-
where I sit on the invoice with the 5 items, we paid 2 last time. I would be willing to pay for the sealer, and I would defer to Mr. Munzel on how much of the rubber joint sealing we would want to pay for, but I'd be inclined to pay for half of it anyway. And then, as far as lighting, I'd give them 22,500, because that's what this says on the main spreadsheet.
However, wouldn't that refer to the other invoice, number 5257?
I believe the spreadsheet does refer to that large invoice, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe we consider paying the $88,212.50, holding back the retainage, which is indicated there. And they're not billing us for that,
Right?
Well,
and pay, I guess the punch list items are really related to what
They
these
are.
other invoices, so
Yeah.
I'd be inclined to hold on that until we,
Hold all of it?
but if you look on the spreadsheet, under item 25, on the 209,125 is 0. So they haven't charged for any lighting on the spreadsheet, on the big invoice. Yeah, the lighting's all on the second one. And they're saying we got 26,
Something more than 50%.
yeah. And, over here, it says that there's 50% now.
So you are anticipating that we will receive yet an invoice for 22,000 for lighting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, then we don't want to pay for that. Or,
No, that's lighting that they're gonna do in January or sometime.
oh, okay.
But the question that was earlier asked was, do we have half of our lights, basically? Which, out of 45,000, 22,500. They're saying that we got 26,300 out of 45,000.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yes, but wasn't there, part of the lighting was omitted in that whole discussion?
That's why we got that over here instead of all.
So that has nothing to do with the 45,000.
It's included in 45. I believe it is. It better be.
I think it is.
You have to go back and read the original proposal. I believe the original proposal was a lot less. Remember, Cadillac asphalt had 170,000 for lighting.
So the 26,000 is unique, has nothing to do with the 45.
I believe it does.
Yeah.
But the spreadsheet that we were just talking about, doesn't.
Well,
You just said zero.
relates to the big one.
Right.
Then we've got another bill with a 26,300.
Which is separate from the spreadsheet. So we're still going to be invoiced another 22,000.
22,500.
Or less.
Mr. Sharp, if this invoice here, this 26,300 is for additional lighting, and we don't know that, right? Then what Mr. Munzel is saying about the spreadsheet is the case. We will still be billed for this amount, which was part of the original contract, and then we will also pay this 26,300 that was the add-on where there was the confusion, correct? See, we don't know.
I don't have the paperwork in front of us.
We don't know what these bills are for precisely.
Well, I agree with Mr. Menzel. We can pay the 88,000 on the first invoice. You still in that position?
I believe so, if we understand that we're still going to be billed 22,500 in the future, and that the 26,000 has nothing to do with this. So that's an extra. So as long as we understand that and agree that's correct.
Well, we should also pay for the sealer.
I would.
I would pay for the hot rubber joints too. And then the reason I would say that is, we were holding a lot of money back on them because we were worried about the integrity of the concrete. And that's why we're giving them the 88,000, but we still have 20,000 in contingency, which is almost enough to do all the sealing again. So we're holding on.
Okay.
And then, I mean, it can be used to do any punch list item, so if there's still any other issues, we can use that.
So do we have some sort of motion? On what we're paying?
I would move we pay invoice number 5257 in the amount of $88,212.50.
Second. Aye.
Okay, is there another motion?
I'm not sure if we have a consensus on this one. Maybe Mr. Harms wants to make a motion.
We might be able to cover these with the contingency, but I think it sends a message that we're very unsatisfied by moving back. If it's 50% or all on the joint ceiling,
I guess I would move that we pay for the concrete sealer and the hot rubber joint sealing and wait to pay that 26.3, because I'm still confused about, I wanna make sure that it's different than what's on the spreadsheet. Oh, I just wanna know for sure.
Well, could we make it payable if it is different? Can you find that out, contingent on that?
Is it work they did already, or is this is work they did, is the other half that we haven't paid based on those posts we don't have? Is that what we
It's
think?
not clear.
That's what I wanna know.
Yeah, we need clarification.
Well, we need to go back to the original bids, and then, we can tell that none of it's been paid.
Well, half of it is on
No.
the lighting thing. Well,
And the
it will
209.
be paid now that we've approved
Yeah,
this, yeah.
right. So what was the motion?
So I move that we pay the concrete sealer and the hot rubber joint sealing for the total of $29,703.20, and that we approve the payment for $26,300 once we confirm that it's for work that's already been completed.
Okay.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to pay $29,703.20 for the concrete sealer, the rubber joint sealing, and pay $26,300 if it is work on the lighting that has already been completed.
And if it was an additional. We gotta clarify that.
Okay, roll call. Aye?
no.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Okay. Payment of Washington, we got another T&M.
Yes, can I ask a question about, this is not an invoice, this is a proposal.
Oh, okay.
Is this,
It's for work already done.
so why don't we have an invoice?
I don't know.
Why do you think it's a proposal? It says invoice.
It says contract proposal, right at the
Where
very
the
top.
X is. I think it's an invoice, even though it says a proposal. They've already done it.
Okay.
We need another,
The X says this is a lump sum quotation.
yeah, I see what it says. Is there a motion?
it says quotation. That if you look at the.
No, we're looking at T&M.
Yeah,
Oh, I was looking at Washington Engineering.
Oh.
Washington Engineering, that was a bill we didn't pay in July.
but this is for $3,915.02.
Oh.
It should be right at, behind, in the packet, it should be right behind that $73,523 invoice to
It's
T&M.
a third of the three T&M
I got it.
invoices in the packet.
I know they've done the work.
I'm sorry.
but- I know they've done the work, but we don't really have a bill. I mean, we have a proposal, a quotation. They worked from this, I don't believe we authorized it. As a board, I don't think we authorized it, but maybe we did when I was gone, I don't know. But I'd really like to have an invoice, a bill.
Well, can we authorize it pending receipt of the invoice?
I move we pay T&M $3,915 contingent upon receiving an invoice.
I'll second that. Further discussion? Mr. Sharp?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay, now we're to Washington Engineering. This was for the work that was done through July 2nd by Washington Engineering. Most of it was for MTC materials testing. We've paid the bill since then, we just didn't pay this one invoice.
Was that an oversight? What?
Yeah,
I move to approve invoice number 55779A from Washington Engineering in the amount of $13,840.80.
I'll second it.
further discussion. Roll call back to Shelley.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Okay. I guess we're back to appointments and reappointments.
I've got some concerns about this. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but we've always done this in December. I will go along with what the rest of the board does, but
I have a
I
question.
don't think it's a great idea.
Do we, I know the election is coming up. When is the meeting where the new board actually sits? Is it November or is it December?
December meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
but they take office on
November
21st of November.
Yeah.
so, I wonder, is it possible that we could extend the terms and have board appointments change in general to like March? That allows any new board through the course of years to come to have some time to settle in and look at appointments and get some participation and, see who might want to get involved once the board sits, the new board sits, each time it turns over.
I would think that that would be problematic if you had a township like, just hypothetically, Scioto Township and their situation.
The new board.
It needs to be done
Change.
in at least December, because the appointments do expire at that point, but you're going to have the new board in place for December.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if this could be changed in general, not just for this board, but in general, where we extend the current
Yeah,
to,
but
to
you-
March, and then it's from March from then on.
Do you remember what happened to the salary of the supervisor in Scioto Township one term ago?
No, I mean, I
They
know. the
reduced it by
manager.
50, the old board, after the election, reduced it to 50%. And then the first proposal in the December meeting was to bring it back up. And there were all sorts of catfights about that. And you don't want to get into that situation. If you wish to do the appointments in December with the new board in place, that's fine. But if you wish to take it out 3 months, I think that would be problematic. That would not make for a smooth transition in some cases. Here, it probably wouldn't make much difference. Do we wish to make appointments tonight or not?
I would recommend that we wait until next month to do some of the appointments. I don't know what appointments you have in mind or what candidates you may have in mind. I took it upon myself, I've been trying for quite a while to identify potential candidates for the Compensation Commission. And the Compensation Commission needs to be seated in January?
They should be seated.
No, it has to be
No,
sooner
they
than
should be
February.
seated in December and start their work in January.
At any rate, that's a 5-member body, and there are 3 vacancies. And I've identified a candidate who's willing and able, and I've proposed her to Mr. Kingsley, because for commissions, the supervisor is the only person that has the authority to make a nomination. But I came upon a lady who's a resident, who's retired, and who has more than 20 years of experience in human resource compensation and benefits management. Her name is Beth Sibre. She also happens to be the current treasurer of the Webster Township Historical Society. Her lifetime work is directly relevant to the kind of work that the Compensation Commission does. And frankly, I think that's a refreshing opportunity for us.
That still leaves us with 2 vacancies on compensation.
Correct.
The problem with the vacancies on the compensation commission is that they cannot hold any Webster Township office, cannot be an employee of the township in any way, shape, or form.
But they could be a previous employee?
Potentially, yeah. Could be a spouse or relative where they have a financial interest. If you've got somebody to put out there in the future, that would be helpful. I don't think if we're not going to make appointments until December, we need to get this compensation commission seated by making the nominations in November. The other ones can wait until December. Everything else can.
Well, the only other one I would make, and again, this is up to you since it's a commission, is the Planning Commission. We have 2 sitting commissioners that are not running for office, who I believe are willing to be reappointed. And I don't know if there's any point in delaying that. I don't know if there's any harm in delaying that either.
Well, the 3 appointments that you've mentioned are all appointments that I make.
They're nominations that you and you alone make.
Kay Sternler for the Planning Commission.
I would second that nomination.
You don't have to vote on it.
Well, we need to vote on it because we could vote no.
Oh, okay.
We can vote no.
Okay. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody voted no. Okay, for the Compensation Commission, I would, well, we need to do the three we got.
Compensation Commission, there's only one candidate right now.
Yeah,
The other ones are not, you don't need to reappoint yet.
yeah, there's still,
So John Kerr's term expires December 2025.
Yep.
And Nicole Rausch
yep,
expires December 2026.
yep,
So if you, and probably we should go back and clarify the terms for all of the nominees, but if you choose to nominate Beth, I would recommend that she be nominated with the term expiring in December of '29. And then the subsequent two people would have then a 4-year and a 3-year.
I would nominate Beth Surbrace
Sibre.
For a 5-year term to the Compensation Commission.
I'll second
Okay, those in favor of Beth Survey for a 5-year term to the Compensation Commission, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Ethics policy.
I would like to just say one more thing. I was really surprised to see in our packet that all 3 positions of the Board of Review are vacant. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're 2-year terms and they all expire at the same time.
Really?
Yep.
And none of them are willing to serve?
It's not that they're not willing to serve, they're willing to serve, but we still have to reappoint.
Okay. Okay. Are they willing to serve?
Yeah.
All right.
And I would accept reappointment to the fire board because that doesn't require a board member.
Okay. Did you nominate yourself?
No.
Is there anybody else that will nominate John Westman for a 5-year, 6-year term on the fire board?
I'll nominate Mr. Westman.
And I'll support.
Further discussion? Those in favor of John Westman for a 6-year term on the DAFP Fire Board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good thing you spoke up there and made and overlooked forever. Okay, Code of Ethics. I don't know if we want to get involved in this tonight. I have a couple of things. I think it's a pretty well-written document that we came up with a number of years ago. But since we had a complaint, there are a couple of shortcomings. One of which is it doesn't tell us what to do if there is a complaint, or what we can do in terms of dealing with complaints.
It depends on who the poorly behaved person is.
Well, just because you have a complaint doesn't mean you got a poorly behaved.
No, but I'm saying if the complaint is against an elected official, it's a completely different situation than if it's against an employee.
True. An employee.
The remedies would not be remotely similar.
Correct. So we need to differentiate that part of it. The rules can remain the same for them, but in terms of how we deal with it would be different. because the employee handbook explains what we do in terms of disciplining employees. The board is not mentioned in there, because the board is not covered by that document.
Well, and I would argue that appointed servants are not either of those. They're not really employees, they receive a token payment. But they're different in my mind.
Okay, so if we have somebody on the planning commission or ZBA that we have an ethics complaint about, who handles that? The chair of the ZBA or the planning commission? That's what this document says. And what do they do about it?
So I would say two things. One, well, a couple of things. One, this policy needs to be moved to our new, the newer structure that we're using. And there's a couple things in here I think they need to be clarified. But to your point, MTA does have guidance on it. They say you delegate who the complaint goes to, and whoever that delegate is does an investigation alongside with whoever is the focus of the investigation. They write up a report. That's what it is. That's what they say.
But this document doesn't.
Right, but I'm just saying that MTA
Yeah.
does have some guidance about,
Yeah.
what we can do.
And in terms of like removing a board member or whatever, the governor can do that.
Yeah, or you can recall them. There's a petition.
People can
Yeah, people
recall
can
them.
recall,
The
yeah.
board can't recall.
Right.
So we need to get that into this document.
I think too, at the beginning of this document, when it lists the things, the conduct, it's, the first bullet point starts off with in conducting their official duties. But really, that needs to go in the first paragraph because in conducting their official duties applies to all of these bullet points. It applies to this whole policy. Right, it's an official duties policy.
I'm wondering if we should take employees out of this potentially, since they're dealt with in the employee handbook, and make this for board and commission members.
I think that's a good idea. Maybe, I'm not confident that the employee handbook covers it as well as it ought to be.
Well, so it needs to be repaired there, not here.
Yeah,
I think they need to be out of this.
I don't disagree.
What about volunteers?
How do you enforce it?
How do we enforce any of this?
You would have to come up with an enforcement for commissioning, you can take them off the board, I'm sure we have the authority to do that, take them off the commission or not reappoint them. But a volunteer is,
You could do that with volunteer also.
well, I suppose you could remove them from a board.
I think the implementation is sort of the way of dealing with it, but it has no teeth. about was financial and personal gain and fairness to citizens. That's what it's really about. I don't want to spend all night on this. It's only way past my bedtime. You know, us old people have to get to sleep. I will come back with some minor changes with this document next month. And we can hopefully have some time to hash it out. That's my proposal. Is everyone good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We have 5-star alarm proposal.
Mr. Devlin is in the house.
Mr. Dudley,
Yes, sir.
what are you doing to our poor fire station?
Not a thing, actually. Well done. Any questions? Welcome. Nice to see some of you brand new. Old. Anyways, my name's Don Denton. I used to be the fire marshal and captain of the Dexter Fire Department. Bottom line here, and what you have in front of you is a proposal for an addition to the fire station's alarm system. Your fire station is built to code, and All-Star Alarm had a plan that has a firewall between the apparatus bay and the living quarters, so there is no detection or notification on the other side or where the bays are. So this proposal here is adding detectors in that area. If there was a fire, and the most likely part of the fire would be an apparatus returning. There is no detection to notify, but there is a firewall to protect. So this is a good thing. This is a quote for $4,000 and something, almost $5,000.
I think what I hear you saying is that this protects equipment, not people. The people are already protected.
Correct. Correct. And I was told by Deputy Township Supervisor that Decker Insurance. Do you have Decker Insurance?
We have power plant insurance, that's what they meant to tell you. And the grant cycle ended September 15th.
Sorry to hear that. Same with what Dexter Township is currently putting in a detection system for the township hall. So they unfortunately didn't qualify for that because it was already in the progress or in the process. But if you propose, there is a grant available for that. Grant ended. So we're asking for $4,607 for that. The majority of the money that is for this is for the lift because they actually have to lift it in the bays. So rental of the lift.
So is there any possibility that we can get this proposal extended until next year?
Well, it'll be re-quoted,
Yeah,
and it'll probably go back up.
maybe I can bring my lift over.
That's something you'd have to talk to with our All-Star Alarm. But that quote is part of the process of putting in the alarms. They don't have the list for the All-Star.
Board members, what do you want to do about this?
The way I looked at this is, as I understand it, the money's available through the insurance company is up to $5,000, and this is about $5,000, and I really, really, really would like somebody else to pay for this. But then I think, well, if we had an incident, how good would I look if I didn't spend $4,700 and now I've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in loss. So I'm not inclined to wait until August of next year, personally.
We could save 6% tax.
Is that price including 6% tax?
There is no tax.
That's what it says.
Where?
Right here.
Including tax, it does, Mr. Detling.
Board, what do you want it to do? We've extended this meeting about as long as we can.
Yeah. Do you have questions or concerns or comments? I mean, I really, if the money's available, I mean, fine, it's not my township, it's not my fire department anymore, but I'm here just being a friend. If there are money in the general fund and or money in, I don't know if you have earmarked fund for the fire side, I know you do, because you have a public safety village. If there's funds in that, I mean,
Why isn't DAFD paying for something that is included in the lease for the inside of the building?
can't talk to you about the Dexter Fire Department, but, it's part of the building, so I think that would be a question brought up.
It's inside the building.
Right, it's
We
part
would
of
have
the,
paid for it when we were building it,
right,
but we didn't know about that. It was not in the plans.
I find
so
it
fire alarm
crazy
system?
that it wasn't in the plans. How do we have a fire department that doesn't have notification there's a fire in it?
They have,
Everybody has opinions, even chiefs,
Don't understand.
Especially in the decon room and the gear room.
I'm gonna make a motion.
So, just one quick question, I guess. I mean, normally we try to get more than one bid on projects, and I'm confused why this is showing up. First time.
This was unsolicited.
Okay, so should we talk to another one or two people to see what, the competitive market is?
So All-Star is the provider that you currently have with that fire alarm system?
And, I'm sorry, are you now employed by All-Star? Is that, no, I'm sorry?
No, sir.
Okay.
Is there any long-term maintenance on this?
No, well, you have a yearly contract that they come in and check the system.
But we've already got that with them, right?
Huh? Yep. As it is, your building is compliant. Chief Armstrong and I were talking, talked about that, talked about the need for the detection system. And I called up All-Star and asked them to forward me the quote. You have it in front of your hands.
I will say I have talked to Chief Armstrong about this, and he is in favor of this. Obviously, it doesn't cost him anything if we pay for it.
I was gonna say, I've never seen an expenditure that he wasn't in favor.
is there any type of motion?
I'll move that we hire All-Star to install the equipment that's mentioned in this proposal. Excluding sales tax. So for a price not to exceed $4,667, but I anticipate it to be roughly 6% less than that. Although, there's no sales tax on labor, right?
I'll support it.
Any further discussion?
We would pay for this out of the public safety fund.
Yeah, I'm just, don't understand why, I don't know the backstory of the history, so.
I know nothing more about it than you do. What I do know is that our lease covers the outside of the building and maintaining the grounds and so on. And DAFD is responsible for the inside of the building, and the upkeep on the inside of the building.
This is not maintenance though. This is new. I'm just saying.
I heard what you said.
And I'm not privy to the maintenance agreement or the lease agreement of the building, so, if it's a Dexter area fire department expense, you know,
It's up, is there anything time sensitive about this? If we made this decision a month from now, would it make a difference?
yeah, we've had to rework it. I mean, they could just recode it, it'll be probably the same price. It may in fact be 6% cheaper.
At least on the parts.
I would have objected a postponement.
Yeah, or reword your proposal that if it's a Dexter area fire department per the agreement, then Webster Township and Dexter Fire Department, that it's null and void. Because I don't know what I don't know.
Dan, if you want us to postpone, I would support that. We don't have to do this tonight.
Keep going, we'll be doing it tomorrow.
That's fine, I don't know who, was your motion?
I made the motion, John seconded, but if you wanted to make a motion to postpone, we could decide whether or not we wanted to push this off until next month.
So moved.
And I will second your motion to postpone.
Okay, we vote on the motion to postpone. Any discussion on that? None? Those in favor of postponing discussion on the All-Star Bay alarm, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll see you next month.
Okay. Not this late.
You have to come earlier. Okay, phone system.
Yeah, so historically, and forgive me if I tell you things you already know, but historically, the way that the phones have worked is that if somebody calls the township hall, every extension in the building rings. The extension that's at my home rings. The only extension that doesn't ring is the supervisor's extension. Typically, amazingly, Bill Sincool almost always answers the phone. When he doesn't answer the phone, a lot of the times, Linda Savitsky answers the phone. In the case that both of those people are occupied, one of the rest of us answers the phone. Historically speaking, my estimate is that the phone calls have gotten answered within the third ring. Usually Bill answers on the first ring. I think that typifies excellent customer service because somebody calls the township hall, a human being answers the phone quickly. Now, the human being that answers may or may not be the person that's expert in the topic that the caller wants to address. But a large portion of the calls are really simple calls. You know, can I pick up a ballot? Where can I pay my taxes? Do you accept a credit card? What time do you close? The ones that are more specific, they end up getting transferred to the subject matter expert. Depending on the time of the year, depends on where the majority of the calls are. On an average time of the year, I would say the majority of the calls or the plurality of the calls go to the zoning administrator, who is frequently not in this building. Last week, a change was made in how the phones operate to where if you call the township, a robot answers the phone, and you listen to a menu, and you pick the person that you think will address the reason for your call. And if the person at that one extension doesn't answer the phone, that call goes into voicemail. That does a couple of things. One, it makes it so that people can't answer simple questions for people and they can't get satisfaction immediately. It also does something which I didn't realize until after the fact, is when a robot calls me to give me a second factor authentication code for me to access a financial institution, the robot can't contact me. So I can't receive two-factor authentication codes on the phone anymore. Even as recently as last week, I wasn't in the building physically, and Bill was getting the codes and texting them to me, and he can't do that anymore. Long story short, I wanted to make the board aware of this and get feedback from the board on how the board thinks that we should operate.
Well, I think the first way is just fine. Why was the change made?
The change was made, Mr. Westman, because we are a hand down and it is an election season, and we are getting a tremendous number of calls that end up with Mr. Sinkul, whom we pay a very large salary to be a phone receptionist, running around trying to find out if you will take a call, for instance, would you like to speak with this person, etc., etc. We do not have the time when Mr. Sinkul is out of the office, which is frequently, to answer all of these phone calls. I need Mrs. Savitsky now to help with the election, the same way Mr. Scharf needed her to help with tax collection. So that is why it was changed. And I talked to the board, I made a little announcement back in, I believe it was June, that this is available. It costs us nothing. It's simply there. That's why it was changed. When Mrs. Collegia left, she took a huge amount of expertise with her. It is taking 2 to 3 of us to replace her in an election year when we are under so much scrutiny. It's incredible. And we are also being deluged almost every day, certainly every week, with changes in the rules, additions of details that we have to report on, etc., etc. If you folks find that you're getting complaints, we can talk about changing this back after the election. I'm perfectly happy to do that. But right now, we need this relief. That's why it was changed.
So this was done, did you do that individually, or how did this come about?
Well, no, not exactly. I just talked to the folks in the office who are involved in answering the phones. And they thought it was a good idea to give it a try, especially now. Mr. Scharf expressed his opposition to it, yes.
So we have a 3-week period of time that we should probably stay with the current course and then reevaluate.
I think that would be an excellent idea. And if you receive a lot of complaints, comments, anything from your constituents, from our constituents, then there's no reason we can't switch it back. But I will again reiterate, Mr. Sinkul is an extremely expensive phone answerer. The attendant costs us nothing, and And so far, we have a very short message. Have any of you tried phoning the township hall? Give it a try. It's a very brief message. You can pick who you want to talk to. If you don't know who you want to talk to, you press 0 and it goes to Linda Savitsky's phone.
Who is spending much of her time in the conference room, and she's not at her phone.
Exactly. She is working now doing ballots.
So it sounds like a big issue is Linda doing too much.
Exactly. And if we lose Linda, there's gonna be hell to pay.
So, so
I think we should stay the course for at least 3 weeks.
I would just say that whether Bill answers the phone or not, he's the same cost to us. And Bill has told me that he doesn't mind answering the phone at all. In fact, he enjoys talking to the people.
Well, that's
That's what he
interesting.
told me.
Well, Mr. Sharp.
And I will just say, I learn a lot when I talk to people. I get a sense of what the issues are. You know, I get what is this week's issue? Is it trash pickup? Is it road maintenance? I have, and Bill will say the same thing. More than a dozen times I've asked people if I could transfer them to Sri's voicemail, and they tell me, no, she never responds to voicemail.
Well, that's a different issue. That is a different issue completely.
But I wouldn't know that if I don't answer the phone.
I
Oh,
think
yes,
that we
you will.
need to continue with the phone tree for the next 3 weeks.
Is there any way of getting it to where if they press 0, it goes to all numbers?
I don't have a clue, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, what other options are there that maybe it could return it back to going to everybody and then somebody could answer it?
Well, if it goes to the front desk phone, somebody will answer it. It's just that simple. The only time it truly doesn't get answered is when, like if I were to press an extension for Bill, for instance, and if he were out on a class out of the office for some reason.
And what about is there another way of doing the two-factor identification?
Yes,
that I
we
know
get, yeah, if you're talking about Flagstar, they'll send you an email code and it'll come through.
I'm not talking about Flagstar.
Who are we talking about?
I deal with multiple financial institutions. The most recent one is Bill.com, which I use for the fire department. I can't pay a bill until I get that second factor authentication. So what I tell the chief, I'm sorry, I can't authorize your bill payments anymore.
Get it down sharp that.
No, we've had this.
We've tried.
We've had this issue before, and Tony knows that. Right now, Flagstar goes out of their way to treat us differently than all their other customers. They send us our bank statements because we can't get them online because we can't do two-factor authentication with the landline. So, and you get robots and robots, they don't work together.
Well, it's set up on purpose for you not to be able to do on a landline. Two-factor authentication, the specific focus of it is to make sure it is you and
No,
only you.
two-factor authentication works in many different ways.
Yes, but the focus is to make sure it's you and only you answering the phone, you and only you seeing the second factor, you and only you signing in.
Right.
So if the second factor is going to a general phone number, that's not secure anyway.
It's not going to, it's going to a general phone number that I answer, but now I can't answer.
Oh, he has a definite point there. I got around it with Flagstar by simply saying, send me an email. And if you, sometimes the first time, the spam filter will stop it, and then you let it through, and then the second time, we're fine. They want us to use our personal cell phones. We don't have county or township cell phones. And some of us, I'm one of those people, I will not give them my personal cell phone number. John won't either. Now, you know what, when it comes to the fire department, I understand that we are tied up with them intimately because of the public millage, the public safety millage. But I think there must be a workaround for Bill.com. If that's the only one you're having problems with, there's a workaround, I'm sure there is for that, just contact them. And yes, it's nearly midnight, Jim.
Can we argue about this tomorrow?
Yeah,
I don't think it takes board action to change our phone system around.
but if you
Well,
do.
to me, the ultimate thing is customer service, and I think it degrades the customer service. I think having a human being answer the phone when people call, historically, for years, for the 5 years that I've been treasurer, the phone calls have been answered mostly on the first ring, sometimes by the third ring, always by a human being. And anything less than that is less customer service.
Well, I fully agree, but the situation now is not anything like you've ever faced in your 5 years.
I'd be willing to hire somebody to answer the phone if that's what it takes. I mean, if we're talking 3 weeks, that's 12 days.
Sorry.
I think we can live with it for 3 weeks. Any further discussion on phones? Okay, correspondence. Tony?
We have a letter regarding, from a resident regarding the animal. The pigs, yes, pet pigs. And then we have bills from our neighbors. Oh, and
Any questions on correspondence?
I got one question.
Yeah.
This is not addressed to, this is the one on pigs for keeping of animals, and Tom Neal is not on this. So when stuff comes in for things like this, is this put in the planning commission's mailbox?
She
I
sent,
know.
she sent this to the planning commission as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, I
She
just wanna know
also
how it's
spoke at the
handled.
planning commission.
Okay, that's all I had.
Call to the
That's
public.
what the planning commission just said it here, so.
Right.
Call to the public. Anybody that wishes to speak, please step forward.
Waiting away from me.
Concerns of board members besides the phone system.
Could we, next month on the agenda, review the audio equipment? I know you sent it via email, but can we put it on the agenda?
I, as an update, met with another provider last week, I don't know what day it was. And they have some different ideas, but for the same stuff.
Awesome.
The first provider wanted to do laser projectors. The second one wishes to do flat screen TVs. So we'll see how it works. I'll get the next proposal out to you as soon as I receive it.
Thank you.
John?
Yep.
Can you look into several of the parking spaces being turned into van accessible, the bigger ones, please? At least give us a quote.
Yeah.
I have not a concern, but just a piece of information related to work that is going to be occurring, and someone already has on the transmission line that runs through the township. We're going to be reconducting one of the circuits, and that will be done mostly with helicopter. So you may see helicopters out along the corridor, and that's what they're doing. In addition, yesterday, there was one of the lattice tower structures that was raised up through a mechanism, very fascinating, but it's like a record set. They clamp these things on, hoist the whole thing up, and rebuild it higher. So pretty cool stuff. that.
And trespass. And there have been some questions about helicopters. And can I get a ride?
Sure, wave it down.
If we stick around another 15 minutes, we can claim we met for 2 days straight.
That's true.
The fact that my battery on my bladder made it through this meeting is a miracle.
Well, it is.
I'm looking for a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?